A lot of people think that coming out of the closet is a one-time thing. But as someone who came out of the closet at least 10 times, I can tell you it's a lifelong journey. My name is Cornelius, and I am a proud black gay man. I wanted to get that out of the way for all of those who know me but might not know that. I wanted to share my experience for all of those young LGBT people who struggle to find their place within the black church. I grew up the youngest child of a Pentecostal pastor, and church was one of the most important things in my life. I wasn't just a Sunday church service kid, though. I was in the choir, on the usher board, participating in Sunday school, vacation Bible school, youth department events. So many people in my family are leaders in the church that the church family is my family. To add to my religious upbringing, I went to a predominantly black, Christian private school from kindergarten to 8th grade. My social life revolved completely around the church. There weren't any openly gay people that I knew in my school or at my church, and to be honest, I'm not really sure where I learned what being gay meant. But I knew there was something different about me in middle school. My best friend and I at the time experimented together, and each time I felt more and more disgusting. I was always scared that people would find out about me. It didn't help that I had no interest in sports, no interest in having a girlfriend, and that I was somewhat of a nerd. I was definitely a kid that could have been teased by the popular people. But since that was an unchristlike thing to do, and our school was so small, I was able to avoid this. I went to a public high school and for the first time was exposed to different cultures, different religions, different sexualities, and my 8th grade class of 21 had turned into a 9th grade class of 700. It was a drastic culture shock. Monday through Friday became a whole new world, a world I was able to keep separate from my Saturday choir rehearsals and Sunday service. I tried to fit in, but fortunately my school was large enough that I could slip through the cracks without being too noticeable. I got involved in theater, joined a peer helping program, more to help myself than others, and started to experiment with drugs and cutting class to fit in. I managed to make it through high school, but had started to develop split personalities. It would drive me crazy trying to be one thing for my friends, something else for my family, something else for my church, and something else for the secret gay identity of chat rooms and secret hookups. It was exhausting. I didn't come out of the closet until I was 20, in the middle of college, and even then it wasn't a full coming out. I shied away from having too many gay friends, didn't like being involved in gay events, and still believed deep down that I was going to hell. It's horrible to try to hate something that you are. At this point, I was directing the youth choir and very involved with the youth department. Every Sunday, I would watch people that I love shout, "Amen," and "Preach on, Pastor," to painful comments about gay people. I sat in silence as people agreed that I was to blame for AIDS, that I was an abomination, that the way I felt inside was wrong, even though I was one of God's creations. The worst part about sitting in silence through these messages was that I knew I wasn't the only one. The peer program I joined in school had given me a different perspective. Being exposed to different cultures and beliefs allowed me to place my situation in the context of the larger world. My life is larger than the church and larger than my sexuality, but it was my sexuality that I allowed to keep me silent. You hear a lot of stories about people who confront their churches or their families or their schools and demand dignity. I did not have that courage. Instead of confronting my church, I just stopped participating. I did formally come out to my immediate family, but I've also avoided my extended family ever since. I am an LGBT advocate by day and a closet case by night, and this is why coming out is such an ongoing process for me. I'm not the most macho guy out there, but I'm not the most flamboyant either. I can pass for straight, and I use it to my advantage. People sometimes assume I'm straight, and if it's a family or a church event, I won't correct them. And this is why some of my very own cousins, nieces, nephews, and family might not know that it gets better. I have run across such bravery in my LGBT friends who aren't ashamed of who they are, and I think about what keeps me living in fear. Perhaps it's the fear of hell, the fear of disappointing my father and not living up to his expectations. Perhaps it's because I was taught that being gay is not really an identity but more a condition. In either case, I'm not getting any younger, and it takes so much effort to pretend to be so many things that I'm tired of trying. I was able to avoid the public persecution that so many of our LGBT community face. I never had to be kicked out of school or denied prom tickets. I never had to be excommunicated from my church. I never got bashed. But what I did to myself was equally destructive. I kept silent. My brother was murdered last Thanksgiving, and he and I didn't have the closest relationship because I isolated myself from him. I feared that he wouldn't love or accept his little brother, that I could never be a good uncle to his kids because I was gay, and people assume we molest children. I kept him separate from the life I was building for myself because I assumed he wanted no part of it. One of the last conversations we had was about how much we had in common and how we needed to try harder to communicate because we had so much to catch up on. He told me that he loved me, he was proud of me, he encouraged his sons to be like me and good at school, and how much he knew we would make something of ourselves one day. I hugged him as I dropped him off at the BART station, not knowing that I would never see him alive again, and drove home excited about the new relationship we'd be able to create. And that relationship will never happen. I have wasted years trying to be what I thought my family wanted me to be, and avoiding those I thought hated me. But they never knew me. I felt ashamed for not being the little good Christian boy they knew, and never gave them a chance to get to know the awesome gay Christian man that I am. Me being true to myself is not just for me, it's for them. I have found more love and support from my family and friends than I ever anticipated. And they've become more knowledgeable about LGBT issues. Every step I take to be who I truly am draws them closer and makes living my life that much easier. I always thought that since there was so much more to me than being gay, that I didn't want to come out because people would only think of me as gay. But my brother told me something. Not to assume that everyone would judge me, and if they did, don't worry about it. I'm a good son, a good brother, a good uncle, a good friend, and a good person. And anyone who has hatred or disgust towards me is not someone I concern myself with. But it's still difficult. I do fear hell, but I have more faith in humanity and God than that. I think that the lessons the church taught me about love and kindness and respect, being patient, setting an example, and not judging other people, mean more to me than the lessons of exclusion, superiority, and isolation. And it was my upbringing that gave me the strength and guidance to deal with the challenges that come my way. It was a long journey for me, from being that closeted middle school kid who had a secret he was too ashamed to share. I'm not what I ought to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be. And I found out that I was the key to making it better. Even making this video is pretty scary, but that's why it's so important. I fear that my family might be embarrassed. I fear that my church might be ashamed. But what I fear more than that is the thought of another beautiful young LGBT person taking their life because they don't understand how important they are. Our LGBT elders did a lot for us to make the progress we've made, and I want to do that for you. Violence is never the answer against yourself or others. And for those of you living in fear who continue to tease and harass others, I hope you're prepared for the karma coming your way. The world has enough problems for us to face, and we need to face them together. In order to do that, we need to appreciate the beauty and diversity of each other and not suppress it. To all you young gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, questioning, queer, intersex young people, I say I love you, even if I don't know you, because that's what community is. And if you're somewhere and don't feel you have community, hang in there. Letting your light shine will give others the courage to do the same, and you are greater than any challenge you are facing. You don't deserve to face what you're facing, but you'll definitely deserve the rewards you receive when you make it through the storm. So keep your head up, stay true to yourself, and keep pushing to make things better.